The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
We now return to Live and Let Live on the Logos Radio Network. I'm Gary Johnson. We are live on Sunday, April 14th, and if you would like to call in, the number is 512-646-1984. That's 512-646-1984. We are talking with Christopher Strunk, and he is someone who has gone to court many times to challenge the eligibility of Barack Obama and John McCain to be president under Article 2 of the Constitution, which says that the president must be a natural-born citizen. And there are issues with Barack Obama because his father was a British subject, and with John McCain because he was born in Panama. And so there are issues about whether they are natural-born citizens. And there are also other issues with their eligibility to be president. One thing that happened to Chris recently was that a judge, Arthur Schack, criticized his lawsuit and called him fanciful, delusional, and irrational. And Judge Schack said about your case, Christopher, that if it were a movie script, it would be entitled The Manchurian Candidate Meets the Da Vinci Code. Is this typical of Judge Schack's language, his rulings?
Right. He was a teacher, a history teacher in the New York City school system, and he's bored to death. And that, in fact, if this were a real fairy tale, it would be Brer Fox meets Brer Rabbit. And that's, he set up a straw man or a tar baby for me to grab onto, and then I had him throw me into the briar patch. That's the short of this thing.
So you are optimistic, though, because in spite of his, cheap shots against you and so forth, you at least got a ruling on something that you can appeal.
Right. It took me a year to do it. He was scared to death because none of the attorneys put in their bills after he had ordered them. I mean, We're talking $600,000 here, Gary. $600,000. Look, the top Obama. Let's see, it was Obama, Biden, his campaign finance, Penny Pritzker, who was his treasurer, Martin Nesbitt, who was the treasurer of his of Obama for America. You had Nancy Pelosi, who had signed all the paperwork as chairwoman of the convention, who falsified documents for getting on the ballot. Let's see, that was the Democrat. That was one law firm. And there was a lot of paper. There was like 8 inches of paper on that one alone. So believe me, they didn't put one dime in. Not one dime. Now, Obama spent well over $3 million defending himself. It's probably using taxpayer money doing it, which in itself is illegal. Then you have McCain and his campaign people. Now, personally, I like Palin, so I didn't sue her. But let me tell you what's going on here, Gary.
Yes.
The political parties have been violating the 12th Amendment with the various boards of election now for a long time. The 12th Amendment says there must be a distinct ballot for president and vice president, and that the Electoral College must vote in that manner. Now, the separation of presidential candidates from vice presidential candidates is not done for the general voters, such as myself. And as a privilege, merely as a privilege to vote, to make a recommendation to the electors who are then selected, it's an equal protection issue. I want to be able to vote for a vice presidential candidate, and I want to be able to vote for a presidential candidate. Get your head around that one. Now, so you have McCain's attorney out of Washington. He spent a lot of money going back and forth. He used to say, "Hey, I got the red eye special here, and you owe me on that flight." They were saying in court that was an expensive flight. Of course, these guys are getting $1,000 an hour. All right. Then there was George Soros' attorney. I mean, we're talking about Wilkie Farr, Gallagher Wilkie Farr. This is Mario Cuomo's law firm that he is hat in hand working for. Now, they didn't put in a bill. And George's attorney came in, was expounding about how all he did was to give money and that he's being picked on by me, right? And then we have Roger Caleros, one of the largest socialist international law firms down
I want you to tell us more about Roger Calero, because this is very interesting for people who don't know. Roger Calero isn't even a U.S. citizen. I mean, not only was he not born in the United States, he's not a U.S. citizen, but he was running for president as the Socialist Workers Party candidate, and his name appeared on the ballot in some states. How is that even possible?
And Judge Shack says in open court, we protect the First Amendment. You have the First Amendment right to be on the ballot. And it's like somehow the First Amendment trumps Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. And all the attorneys sort of shrunk away and were embarrassed, and they should be. This judge is a nutcase. He is a socialist wonder. He's a 14th Amendment socialist wonder, international refugee, as far as I'm concerned. Now, how he got on the bench, well, I know how he got on the bench. He was put there by the political elite, the high culture of Brooklyn. So, look, Roger Calero was put there as a deal with the socialists within the power structure. He was put there as a foil to give McCain, the other socialist, and Obama, the third socialist, a little clutch. That's like what goes on in New York. Look, they just came out with a study. New York is the least free state of the 50 states. It's a fascist state, and it's been a fascist state for a very, very long time. And that it should be an eye-opener for anybody that understands top-down government. There's no such thing as left and right. Top-down government is about a very handful control the lives of a very few at the bottom. We were set up as a bottom-up system with subsidiarity, which says that the states have a sovereign structure and the government is there to protect not only citizens but the rights of the states. Now, that's all been taken away after 1868. That's all been taken away after the Emergency Banking Act of 1933, and that we've been stuck in error for a long time. Our education system, it's like de-education has been lightning quick since the 70s. But look, Roger Calero got on the ballot because there was a big court case maybe 30, 40 years ago, and that the Socialist Workers Party has got standing in New York, even though they don't have standing. They're kowtowed to. The chairman of the New York State Board of Elections is the official attorney for the New York province for the Society of Jesus. He is, and the two directors and the two chairmen, they're all Catholics. New York State is run by the Catholic Church. And when there is not a Knight of Malta like Pataki sitting there, or like what's his face, Giuliani, who's a Knight of Malta, they have a Jesuit priest in there reading the paperwork, like for Governor Patterson. Patterson's aide was a Jesuit priest, and he got in so much trouble because he didn't pay his taxes, and he hadn't paid his taxes for 5 years, and his only excuse was, "I was depressed." So, he left. Now, look, New York State, if you want to make sure what you don't want in Texas, point to New York State. You don't want New York State.
I think we often do. I'm sorry to tell you this.
Well, Conley did, and he changed parties. And he actually, when he ran for president, he ran against Nelson Rockefeller, pointing to the Northeast Republicans.
Well, Christopher, it just seems interesting to me, in your case and all these other eligibility cases, you have somebody like Roger Calero, who's born in Nicaragua, who should not be eligible under Article 2 to run for president. You have someone like John McCain, who's born in Panama. You have someone like Barack Obama, whose father was a British subject. These are basic constitutional questions. Are these candidates eligible? And yet it seems like someone like you who just wants to raise the issue, you can't even get into court. You haven't even had a chance to argue the merits of your case. You're being thrown out on pre-trial motions. I want to ask you about that when we come back. We're talking with Christopher Earl Strunk. He's from Brooklyn, New York. He is the founder of the Association for Sovereign Home Rule Within. You can find out more about him by going to his website, www.strunk, that's strunk.ws, or Association for Sovereign Home Rule Within.org.
Her people with something to hide.